It's really fascinating when you think about how much groundwork actually goes into effective design. I was reading about Emily Hale, a designer, and she put it so well. She said, research is the very foundation of my entire design process. It lets her understand the challenge, the problem, basically the question she's trying to answer. Makes you think, doesn't it? If you don't know what you're trying to solve, the solution just won't land. It's not just about like a flash of inspiration.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're digging into today. Our focus is design research, and we're using these lecture slides, designresearch.pdf, as our map, really.
Yeah.
The goal is to look past just the aesthetics, the surface stuff, and explore why proper research is so vital in graphic design.
Exactly. And hey, if you're working on the DGM 3017 graphic and multimedia design project proposal, this should be super relevant. We'll be connecting these research ideas directly to those proposal components you need to cover. Think of it as getting the why behind the what. We'll just follow the slides, designresearch.pdf in order. So let's get started.
Okay, so the slides kick off asking, what is theory? They start with a scientific angle first, hypothesis, experiment, data, maybe eventually a theory if it all holds up.
Right, the classic scientific method we all learned. But then, yeah, it gets a bit fuzzier in art and design, doesn't it? Can we even use that same idea of theory? The slides ask if things like philosophies of design or principles of design count as theory for us. They mention Gestalt theory, too. That's interesting, right? Design isn't science, obviously, but maybe taking that systematic approach, asking a question, testing ideas, analyzing results, even if testing means user feedback, maybe that really strengthens things.
Well, what's interesting is how design tries to build these frameworks. Take philosophies of design. The slides mentioned de Stijl back in 1917 to 31. They had this really ambitious idea, a universal visual language, simple geometric shapes, primary colors only. They thought it could work for everyone, cross-cultural boundaries.
Yeah, the Rietveld red and blue chair, you see that, and it just screams distill, right?
Yeah.
So elemental, so stripped back. But like the slides say, even with that strong vision, it didn't exactly become the global standard, did it? It was important, sure, a powerful idea, but its reach was limited.
That's a good point. Maybe the very simplicity that defined it also kind of limited how much it could express.
Yeah.
Dealing with all the different cultural nuances and emotions out there.
Could be.
Then you have the principles of design. These feel less like grand theories and more like established guidelines, maybe, for making visuals work. The slides list pattern, contrast, emphasis, balance, proportion scale, harmony, rhythm movement, ways to think about how elements interact.
Yeah, almost like a basic toolkit or vocabulary that designers share. And the slides also mention color theory, RGB, CMYK, additive, subtractive, the color wheel, complementary colors, all that. And grid systems too, like with the Joseph Miller Brockman cover example. These feel like really practical, theoretical frameworks designers actually use day to day.
Absolutely. They give you a basis for making choices that aren't just random guesses.
It's funny how color works too. Like white means purity here, often. But in parts of East Asia, it's for mourning. Shows how even basic stuff is cultural, which loops right back to needing research.
Precisely. These systems give a foundation, but context is everything. Okay, so the presentation then contrasts art's reputation with graphic designs. It mentions how art is often seen as, pure talent, intuition, subjective beauty, kind of separate from logic or math.
Oh yeah, that whole romantic idea of the lone genius artist, it's definitely a thing. And the slides suggest graphic design historically got lumped in similarly, maybe even more so because it was seen as applied arts just for marketing, selling stuff, relied on having a good eye.
Right. And it points out that graphic design didn't really have a strong research tradition for a long time. It was more about applying aesthetics to a function, maybe less about deeply understanding the audience or context through, systematic research. But, and this is key, the slides show an evolution. Modern graphic designers, they're really starting to see the power of research and weave it into how they create.
Which brings us right to the big question. Why research? And the slides give some solid answers. First off, it helps designers check their gut feelings, their intuition, or confirm them. It's about grounding those instincts.
Exactly. It moves design away from just, I like it, towards this works because the slides argue this is what makes graphic design a real profession. It demands that strategic thinking, that evidence.
And it totally changes the focus, doesn't it? Research naturally brings the audience into the picture. You start designing for them, maybe even with them. That feels like a huge shift.
It really is. Understanding their needs, their values, their culture. That's how you make work that actually connects. And this leads right into the idea of vernacular in design. The slides define it as the visual language, the symbols that are specific to a place or a culture.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack vernacular a bit.
That
The slides say user groups, like a demographic, often share values, interests, aesthetic tastes, and these shared things show up in their visual language. So what looks great to one group might totally bomb or worse offend another. And just to clarify for everyone, demographics are the who, age, location, income, that sort of thing. Psychographics are the why, their attitudes, lifestyles, values. You really need both.
absolutely crucial. And this connects directly to your project proposal for DGM 3017. One of the key proposal components is defining your intended target audience, demographic, psychographic, Ali. Understanding the vernacular of that audience, their visual shorthand, their cultural touchstones, what they find appealing or emotionally resonant, that's how you make sure your design actually works for them.
The slides even have those examples, like colors and culture and hand gestures around the world. Really hammers home how context changes meaning. A thumbs up isn't always good, or a color means something totally different elsewhere. These are exactly the kinds of things you need to think about for your audience demographics and psychographics.
And those images of street style are great examples too. You see distinct visual patterns in different subcultures or places. It's their vernacular. So when you're doing your project proposal, thinking about your audience's visual vernacular helps justify your design choices. It shows you understand who you're trying to reach and what language they speak, visually speaking.
It's like needing to speak their dialect, but with visuals and cultural references. Okay, so then the slides talk about critical reflection, which feels like the next logical step, right? It's not just researching others, but looking inward too.
Exactly. Reflecting on why we make the choices we do. That self-awareness, the slides suggest, adds rigor, but also makes our work clearer. We can actually explain our rationale.
Makes sense. Then there's a mention of the First Things First manifesto, the original 64 one and the 2000 update. It's basically a call for designers to use their skills for more socially worthy stuff, not just pushing products people don't need. Makes you think about the ethics and impact of design.
Definitely a point for reflection, considering the wider role of design in society.
Okay, so we've covered the why of research. Now the slides get into the how with the research framework. A way to organize everything, make sense of it all. And I love that Zora Neale Hurston quote. Research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. Really captures it, doesn't it? It's active.
It really does. So the framework components. First, the research objective. What's the main goal? Solving a problem. Investigating something. This links straight to the purpose and objectives in your project proposal.
Right. What's the core aim? Then research questions. The specific things you need to find out to guide your work. Keeps you focused.
Next up, research methodologies. The slides break it into qualitative, like interviews, observations, focus groups, giving you descriptive data, and quantitative surveys, experiments, structured observation, giving you numbers. And these map directly onto the research methods, primary, secondary part of your proposal. You need to think about which methods fit your questions.
Okay, now data collection. This is where they distinguish primary resources from secondary resources. Let's get into this because it's important. Primary is defined as raw data you collect and analyze yourself, like doing interviews, your own observations, digging in archives, running experiments. The slides show that example of testing packaging materials for durability. That feels really relevant to the assignment brief's stress on originality. All work needs to be original. No images from the internet. All photographs and images should be original. So doing your own tests, like those material ones shown or your own photo sheets, that counts as primary, right? It fulfills that originality requirement. Those images of material tests are great visual examples.
It's exactly right. Primary research is you generating new data. Then secondary resources are about analyzing stuff that's already out there. Literature reviews, academic papers, books, articles, basically analyzing data someone else collected first. The slides list examples like cognitive studies, semiotics, cultural studies. And the Tayo magazine cover is shown as maybe a secondary source for understanding cultural context from a past era.
Got it. So primary, you make the data. Secondary, you analyze existing data. Crucial difference for that research methods, primary, secondary section in the proposal. You'll need to plan for both, likely.
Precisely. Then, once you have the data, primary, secondary, or both, comes data analysis. Looking for the patterns, the connections, the insights. Does it answer your research questions? How does it point toward solutions?
Which leads nicely to the conclusion, not just summing up, but reviewing if the questions got answered, maybe seeing where more research is needed, and critically proposing solutions. This links right back to the whole point of the project proposal. Propose issue that you will address and propose a design campaign.
And finally, the slides wrap with plus visual communication. That's the end game, right? Turning all that research and analysis into actual designs. And as we've sort of stressed all along, you can see how each piece theory, research methods, audience understanding, vernacular, data analysis feeds into those specific proposal components. Your topic background, problems, purpose, target audience definition, research methods plan, visual references to your proposed outcomes and justifications, even the mood board, Gantt chart, and your digital workbook where you document it all. Everything rests on solid research.
Okay, wow. Let's try and bring it all together then. It's really clear that design research isn't just some extra step. It's completely foundational, isn't it? It's what lets us get past just our own gut feelings and create designs that actually mean something, that work for real people.
That's the core of it. Understanding that audience demographics, psychographics, their visual vernacular is so incredibly important. And remember, building a strong project means using both primary research, your own digging, and secondary research, learning from what's already known.
So as you're all working on your project proposals, maybe the thing to really chew on is this. How can really digging into research methods and truly analyzing your audience help you create designs that aren't just effective, but maybe more impactful, more culturally plugged in? It's about moving beyond just what you think looks cool and understanding why something will connect with the specific people you're trying to reach.
Absolutely. Understanding that why, grounding your decisions in actual research and theory, it just takes your work to another level. Beyond just looking nice, it becomes relevant, effective. It actually connects.
So a final thought maybe, as you all start working on those project proposals, think about how really digging deep into your topic through research might lead you somewhere unexpected. How could it help you find design solutions that truly resonate and maybe even tackle some real issues? Approach the proposal with that researcher's curiosity.
Yeah, see where that formalized poking and prying takes you. You might be surprised.